Once, this river crowned kings. Now it lays bare, its bones cracked under a foreign sun. This is the story of the Loire, France's royal river, dying of thirst. The Loire is not the longest river in the world. It's not the deepest. It doesn't cut canyons or cradle rainforests. But in France, it is everything. The cradle of poetry, the spine of Renaissance. A river that once mirrored the ambitions of kings and now mirrors the scars of climate change. Stretching over 1,000 kilometers from the highlands of Ardèche to the Atlantic Ocean, the Loire has always been a paradox, untamed, yet adored, shallow, yet majestic, wild, yet central to the story of a nation. But today, its wildness comes at a price. The Loire is shrinking, and what it reveals is unsettling. They called it La Loire Royale, the Royal Loire, because the kings of France did not just build castles along its banks. They built legacies. From the Château de Chambord, with its spiraling towers and Da Vinci-inspired staircases, to the elegance of Chenonceau, arching over the water like a bridge between centuries. This river was once the canvas for royalty's dreams. The Renaissance bloomed here. So did intrigue, betrayal, art, and empire. The Loire didn't just flow through geography, it flowed through power. It was here that Joan of Arc crossed during her march to lift the siege of Orléans. Here that Leonardo da Vinci spent his final years, just steps from its banks. And here that kings escaped the grime of Paris, chasing clean air and clearer thought. But what they didn't chase, what they never could, was control over the river. Because the Loire does not obey. The Loire remains Europe's last major undammed river. Its flow is seasonal, erratic, beautiful, and dangerous. Sometimes it dries in degraded channels of hot stone. Other times it floods with a force that drowns entire towns. That's why the Loire Valley was never tamed like the Seine or the Rhone. You don't harness the Loire, you live beside it, or you suffer. And yet, in its wildness was always life. The river carved one of the richest ecological corridors in Europe, wetlands teeming with birds, reeds that hummed with dragonflies, fish that spawned freely in oxygen-rich water untouched by concrete dams. It became a haven not just for biodiversity, but for human freedom too. A place of rebellion, refuge, and return. But that wildness, once sacred, is now viewed as a problem, especially when the rains stop falling. In the summer of 2022, something unthinkable happened. The Loire dried. Not metaphorically, literally. Entire stretches of the riverbed were exposed, not just shallow but bone dry. Boats stranded in mud, fishermen standing where fish once swam, bridges arched over nothing but dust. Locals in Saumur, Tours, in anger. Towns that have known the river for centuries looked out at the emptiness and whispered, "We've never seen it like this." France faced its worst drought in recorded history, and the Loire, with no glaciers to feed it like the Rhone or Rhine, had no memory of such heat. This wasn't just a bad summer, it was a warning. When the Loire dries, the loss is not just visual, it's existential. The freshwater mussels that filter its water can't survive the heat. Salmon, once a symbol of the river's purity, now struggle to return upstream. Bird migrations shift, algae blooms choke oxygen, and farmers who once prayed beside the river now dig deeper into aquifers, stealing from tomorrow. Even the chateaux suffer. Their moats dry, foundations crack. Without the gentle humidity of the river, centuries-old timber begins to split. And so, quietly, a cultural landscape protected by UNESCO begins to unravel. This is not just the death of a river, it's the erosion of memory. I walked the banks of the Loire near Blois in September, hoping to film its golden reflections beneath the arches. Instead, I saw children playing where water should have flowed. Rocks, once hidden, now sun-bleached and cracked. A heron stood confused, looking for fish that weren't there. And I thought about time, how rivers are supposed to be timeless, How we grow up believing they're permanent, that water always finds its way. But what if it doesn't? What if the stories we tell about nature's constancy are just myths we whisper to avoid confronting our fragility? I sat down on a slope where wild lavender bloomed and listened not to the river, but to its absence. And I realized, so this silence may be our doing, but it doesn't have to be our destiny. The Loire's fate is not a mystery. It's the sum of many invisible hands. Climate change, driving hotter summers and erratic rain, water extraction for agriculture, urban sprawl sealing floodplains. Global patterns, yes, but local negligence too. And perhaps, most of all, our belief that wild things will always rebound, that rivers will refill, that forests will regrow, that we can burn and consume and then press reset. But the Loire is teaching us something older, that once balance is broken, even the most sacred flows can fail. And once a river becomes unreliable, so too does everything it once nourished. Yet not all is lost. There are people fighting for the Loire, scientists creating natural flood basins, communities restoring side channels, activists demanding water laws that protect flow before profit. In Orléans, school children now walk the banks planting willows, learning not just history, but stewardship. In Tours, old industrial ports are being rewilded, letting nature take back what we once claimed. And across the Loire Valley, artists, poets, farmers, and monks gather each solstice to hold vigils by the river, not in mourning, but in vow. A vow to keep this river free and flowing. Because the Loire is not just water, it is legacy. To lose it is not just to lose a landscape, but a way of thinking, a way of living beside nature, not above it. So the question isn't just, will the Loire survive? It's, will we remember what it means to live with a river, rather than use it? If this story moved you, share it. Let others know that Europe's last wild royal river is in crisis. And subscribe to Myths and Mysticism of Rivers for more stories that must be told before they disappear.